Pro modeler. This particular build we're going to be doing is the absolutely massive 132 scale F-8 Crusader. Now, sort of last of the gunfighters. It's the last of the, I suppose, the pure gunfighter sort of image. It's got a certain amount of history to the actual aircraft and everything else like that. So we really want to do this one justice. So what do you get? Well, first of all, we get an enormous box. Whip the lid off. As you can imagine, if you've looked on the site, you can probably see that I've done a photo type sort of run through, a review of it, just to show you some of the shots. So this will give you an idea of the scale now. Basically, when you get inside, you've got your decals, very large sheet, very, very colourful, so you can pick the two aircraft you want to do. For this particular case, you've got either VF-194 or, who's the other one, VF-126. 1968 schemes, nice colourful tails, pretty straightforward with the markings. It's going to be the standard gull over white. The instructions themselves, pretty nicely done, pretty straightforward. There is some very nice touches with the kit which we'll work through. Certainly in here you've got the blades, and these here, which are photo etch fan blades. You're never going to see it in a million years, especially when it's all together. It's going to be one of those real shame things that you're going to know the details there, but certainly nobody else is going to ever see it. But never mind. So anyway, when you go through the instructions with this kit, it's really good to have a good look through it first before you even attempt to do it, and you can work out if you want to change any particular bits, what you're going to do with it, what you're going to have open, what you're going to have closed, and things like that. There is some nice touches. Certainly, you've got the ram air for the auxiliary power that drops down is open. The gun bays you can all be seen. You've got various types of weapons fits that can go on there, and sort of so forth and so on. But basically, have a good look through before you start ploughing on with it, and that way you can sort of plan ahead. As you can imagine, it is a whopper of a kit. It's going to be approaching sort of 2 foot long. Nice thing with this kit though, a lot of people would say, okay, where are you going to put it? With this one, if you do it wings up, it'll still fit on a bookshelf because it's very, very thin. So being a carry-borne aircraft, it's quite nice for that. Now this particular one has got very nice touches with nice detail, certainly for the actual wing lift that comes up. You can see obviously the top of the engine down into there, the hydraulic lines, bits and pieces like that, which is another nice little touch. Cockpit, for its scale, I must admit I would like it to have a little bit more. Certainly there is aftermarket stuff lying around out there. What we're going to do is do this basically straight out of the box type of build with a few little extras as we go along, just to sort of tidy it up and everything. It is a lot of money, the kit, but it's one of those, it's an investment kit. Take your time with it, work your way through all the stages and have all the goodies, so you can see it as much as you can open, and that way, it will take your eye along all the different bits and pieces. Certainly we've got a problem with ejector pin marks. One thing I have noticed on this kit, when you go around, they are in the wrong places for everything. Unfortunately, it would have been nice, certainly, I know obviously with the way that they're manufactured, but the pin marks do tend to be right smack bang in between all the detail, and there's none on the back, so I would have done it the other way personally. Weapons fits, you've got 2 of these, obviously you've got your missiles, 1960s era type things going through. This is your engine, which is going to be your detailed parts, things like that. As you can see, there's loads and loads of sprues as we go through all of these, but here's the good bit. This here is the width of your jet that will be when it's wing fold up. So as you can see, put my hand next to it, it will fit quite nicely anywhere. So don't worry about it taking up too much room. If you're going to do it wing fold up, you'll be okay. As I say, lots and lots of bits. As you can imagine, it's a 132 scale kit, so you're going to get a lot of detail. And what you could do, you can add your own detail as you go round as well. Certainly by a little bit of scratch building, adding a little bit of hoses, and that's what we're actually be doing. We're going to be putting the hydraulic lines in, bits and pieces like that, just to really sort of bring it all to life without spending a fortune on it. As I say, it's not a cheap kit, but it's a worthwhile kit to do. Okay, so, usual thing with Trumpeter, some people would say that the panel lining and the riveting is overdone, but certainly on a 132 scale like this, you can get away with it. Your little box here, which has actually got your clear parts, which is your canopy in, so we're leaving those in there to keep nice and safe. So with all good kits, we're going to start with the cockpit area, and we'll get right on with it now. Okay, so we started up, we've got the seat bits all cut up and cleaned up over here. We'll keep them to one side for a moment, we can get on with the cockpit area. Now, 132s, they do tend to have slightly bigger sort of cockpits in the way they go together. Certainly this one has sidewalls and things like that. So perhaps if you like usually dealing with sort of 148s and that, you'd have to spray the insides of these. You don't really have to worry about it because the sidewalls will cover it. Although that said, what I do tend to do is still spray them around here with the cockpit colour, just in case there's any little areas that show through, and that way it's all nicely done. So what you've actually got, you've got the main tub itself, which comes up. You've got sidewalls, which basically are going to fit in just like this type of thing, which we do later. But it's quite handy because they're done as separates. For instance, the sort of 1960s era jets, the cockpits tended to be sort of basically just grey and black, i.e. all the instrument areas are black, panels, side panels, things like that, for instance, are black. The rest of it was just normally, you know, say check the references, but for the Crusader certainly, it's just your interior cockpit grey, which is dark gold grey in this case. Sometimes you could get away if you're using Tamiya XF20, by the time you weather it, give it a little bit of a wash. It tends to dull it down, makes it just about right. Or if not, XF54, which is Tamiya dark sea grey. So that's what we're going to spray this. But what we're going to do is put a few of the bits together for the moment. So what you've actually got is this area down the side here, which are parts A8 and A9, and they can go in. They're quite a funny fit because they don't really clip to anything, they just sort of sit in there. So what we're going to do, we just poke it on the side like so. As I say, they're quite a funny thing to get hold of, just like that. Come along with our glue, and we'll just do it from the outside, touch and flow type things, as we do with our gluing. Let that bite a little bit, and we can just better position it, which is what I want to do, just like that. And then we just put a little bit down the middle. Now with these things, by the time we've got the cockpit all covered up and that, you're not going to see a great deal of detail down in this area, so I'm not going to worry about, you know, going around and adding hosing and wiring down there, because you're never going to see it. If you wanted to, of course, you could go down there and do those bits, but certainly from my point of view, we're just going to sort of plough through this build itself quite quickly, and we're going to concentrate more on the weathering and of how to weather white, and certainly spraying white and things like that. So there we go, we're going to put these bits in, just like so. Okay, so once you're sort of in there, then what you can do, once you're in there a bit, you can just nudge them and make sure they're in properly. So there we go, that's those in just like that. The other thing we can do, we can put in the pedals. In theory, you should have put them in first. When I was planning it, I thought I'd put them in first, but what we're going to do is just put a little bit of glue down in the hole, pair of tweezers, and we can fit it in, and those fit literally just in there, just like that. So that's one in. Same again, bit of glue in that hole, pop it in with the tweezers, and then we can pop it in there properly. There we go, that's the rudder pedals in. So what we'll do, we just set them in a bit better, just like that. Then the other thing as well, you've got the centre console type area, which will fit in, which just checking to make sure we've got the right up and down. We just put some glue just down in here. There we go, that's just going to go down between the legs, and this is what the instrument panel is going to hook onto. So that's one's in like that. So that gives you your sort of your cockpit tub area. Now obviously we don't want to stick these on yet, although you could do, but what I want to do is I'm going to spray them as a separate, and then we can dry brush them to sort of liven them up and all the rest of it. But as we were saying, the instruments, they're actually going to be painted black separate. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the control column in, because I can pick out all the details once it's in there. and obviously the base of it is going to be the same colour as the actual rest of the cockpit tub. So that's the tub in, very, very straightforward and quick. What I'm going to do now, I'm literally just going to get some little bit of kitchen roll out here, do a little bit of spraying, and we're going to spray the cockpit colour up so then we can get on with the black work and get this one together. Okay, so we're going to go in with some XF54. As I said, you could use X20 and then weather it. A little bit too much airbrusher there. I'll just turn the airbrusher down a bit. There we go. That's better. Right, okay, neat straight out of the cup because obviously it's fast drying and it will cover nicely. So what we're going to do, we're literally just going to whip around the entire pit. Cut to air just to dry off. Just make sure you get in from all the angles, straight down especially, and everything else. There we go, that one's done. Now, as I said before, I'm going to take care because I'm not 100% sure how much bleed through you might get. So obviously what I mean by, you might have a little panel that doesn't line up. So I'm not taking any chances, so we'll just spray up anywhere in this area where I've got an idea it might be. Obviously other areas inside we've got to do, but they're internal green colour. So that's that one done. I'll just turn on the old compressor to get a bit more air going in. Right, so we'll just spray up these side panels. Okay, so we've painted the tops of the side panels black. They're just a little bit wet. And what we're going to do, we're going to dry brush the detail up with that and give a little bit of a wash with the light dirt just to bring up the demarcation lines in the panel so we can do those. What we've also done, we've put the seat together, two halves together, and then we've put the back headrest on. Then what we can do is we're going to paint that black in a minute by hand. In the meantime, I've done the cockpit as well, as you say, that's all sprayed up, done now. What I've done, I've given this a little bit of a wash. Now for the wash, all I've used, a bit of acrylic black paint, XF1, in this case for Tamiya, and then a 50-50 mix with water and airbrush cleaner. Now it's both acrylics. The reason you use an airbrush cleaner is, although it's got a little bit of aggressive, it gives you more time to literally slap it round, as we've done down here, to get it round the bits and pieces, and it won't actually melt the paint. It's not going to eat into the paint. It's not going to be as aggressive as if you used to use thinners or something else. So you have got like an airbrush cleaner, a bit of that in there, mix it with some water. It goes a bit foamy, so don't worry about that, but what it will do, it will just make a nice consistency for putting this down. So we have to give those a bit of a while to dry though, because they do take a bit of time to dry off. So in the meantime, what we can do, we can paint the seat. So let's just do a clamp. If we just clamp this up the back, you know, you could spray this just as quick, but what I'll do is I'll just give this a hand paint, which isn't what I normally do. Okay, for this I'm going to use Tire Black. I don't want it to be a really black, so I'm going to use Tire Black. If you haven't got Tire Black, which is H77 guns, all you do is add a couple of drops of grey, just something like XF53, a neutral grey for Tamiya, into a little bit of flat black, and that will give you a very nice colour. So what we'll do is we'll just paint this up black. Okay, so all the black work is all totally dry now. So what I want to do is just add a few little demarcation lines, you know, the white bars you get on the instrument panels. Now for that, what I'm going to use is the light dirt wash. The beauty with this, I've got a little bit just dispensed out here. The beauty with this is obviously you can just pop it in and let it flow around all the lines, and also it will gather around the switches and bits like that as well. So we're just going to pop that only on this side, because the other side, to be honest, we can dry brush up the details. It's just the demarcation lines, but I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll just put a bit over it, just give a little bit of light shadowing around the switches, just like that. So that's pretty straightforward, is on there. We'll zoom you in when we take it off to see. So we're going to leave that to one side to dry. And also what we're going to do, we're just going to pop around with it and pop it in a few little holes and in some grooves on the other one, on the side panels. And what that'll do is just, it will give us some light shadowing as well as dark shadowing. Brush just around like that, and then obviously we'll pop it in some little grooves and things. And then what we'll do, we're going to go around and we're going to dry brush this anyway, to really sort of bring it to life. And what we do this with a sort of a lighter colour, and hopefully it'll just, you know, bring everything up with the shadowing off of the pre-shading that mixes along. So that isn't going to take too long to dry, so we'll leave that to one bit for a minute. Same time, obviously we've got the seat with the black work where we hand painted it black. Obviously that's going to need to be done as well. So what we can do, we can actually paint up the cushions. Now if you see this photo here, as you can see, it's got the green and obviously the different colours of the seat, so it's a nice little reference one. There's also a still of that that's actually on your disc as well, so you can have a look at it there. So we get those painted up. Okay, so we started on a few little things here. Just start off with the ejection seat. I'll bring you in a little bit. Had a little bit of a gap at the top, and it's quite a gap. Now, looking at the reference photos, obviously you've got a little circle on the top which houses the parachute, the drogue chute, for the actual seat itself, and it comes forward. So what I've done is I've used some very thin plastic card, this paper thin stuff, cut a paste, put it on top. That takes care of that gap immediately. I cut a circle of it, and then I sort of just crimped it with my fingers, as you can do, placed it on top and then put it on there. And I was hoping it's going to be a bit more bubbled than that, but it hasn't. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to paint it sort of black, this top bit, in a moment, and then I'm going to put a drop of PVA glue on the top, and as it's setting, I'm going to crimp it with my nail just to give it a little bit of texture, which I think will work quite well. I've dry brushed it up a little bit, just to give it a little bit of depth, but we'll do a bit more picking out detail with silvers and things like that as we go. I've started obviously painting up the cushions and things, so what I've actually done is done dark green for the back cushion, which is this one, and this one will fit, he says. Hopefully it will just clip in right in here, something like this. Obviously when the seat base is in there, it will go in better. And then for the bottom, what we've got here is, we'll do this now, we've got some khaki drab, which is XF51, which is a nice sort of cushion colour. Tighten that bit. And then all we'll do, it dries quite a nice light colour. Let's get a bit on the old brush here, quite a bit, and we're just going to flood the top right the way around. So we're just picking this out quite carefully. So what we do, I sort of just pile it on the top when I'm painting bigger areas with acrylic, and sort of flood it slightly, and that way you get a nice smooth finish to your paintwork. Obviously on a seat you might want to put some cushions in and things like that, but there we go, by flooding it, it's done very nicely. So we can put that to one side, give it a brush, a bit of a washout, just like that. Then obviously, if you might remember, we were just doing the white work, so we just move these out of the way slightly and bring you in. And then what we've got here, as I say, is this white. All this is the light wash. Get a cotton bud, wet it slightly, and just give it a wipe. And then what you do, you should come out with, bring it a bit up, you should come out with is obviously just the demarcation lines are left nicely in place, but obviously all the switches are clear. Now if you find it's a problem and it's building up round switches, so what we do, if you get a fresh cotton bud like this, wet it, and then just place it down and give it a bit of a twist, and it will stop it sticking in. But it's a quick and easy way to do those demarcation lines, just like that. Then what we'll do is, obviously we're going to go around here and dry brush it with a little bit of silver, just to bring the switches up to life, which is pretty straightforward. So for that, all we'll do, we'll use a bit of Citadel. So I've got some chainmail here, which is a nice, quite strong silver, and then get a brush. Probably too big a brush, that one. We've got something just a little bit smaller because we just want to pick out switches. Okay, onto there. Obviously over to a piece of kitchen towel. Get most of it off. And all we do is just lightly touch over the tops of the switches as we go round. So if you just sort of use a sideways movement, we can go around and do them. Just like that. Same again, a little bit more on the brush, and then what we can do is we can just pick around a few little areas where there's some cabling up here at the back and some bits. what we can do, and what it'll do, it'll just dress them up, and they'll show up a lot stronger because of the work we did with the wash on there. And then obviously we just get a little bit more, don't rub quite as much off this time, and we're just going to scuff up those pedals down the bottom, a little bit of scuffing on the floor, so all we're doing is just brushing back and forth where the feet would go, just to give that all that area just a little bit of work down the sides perhaps. And there we go, just done like that. And obviously you can go around if you wanted to and pick out different colours with switches and things like that. Same goes, we can obviously do the hoses and things on the side of this ejection seat with the silver whilst we've got it. So we've got a bit on the brush, and we're just following, just flicking gently over some of the areas of the seat, just to give them sort of scrapes and scuff marks. For sort of general wear and tear, and I like to do it somewhat in the inside, a little bit of dry brushing because they tend to wear out quite a bit, obviously with cruise clambering over them. Okay, then once you start wearing off with the brush, you just flick around it everywhere, and if it does take a big scuffy mark out of it, then that's fair enough. There we go, just done like that. And then what we can do this one now, we can stick in the back of the seat, so we just put a drop of extra thin on the locating points, and we've got the cushion here for the back headrest, and that can be stuck on just like that, which shows through quite nicely. As soon as the base is done, we can get that on. We'll paint up this top bit black, as I say, with the PVA glue, and we'll get those bits in and done. At the same time as we were doing all of those, also what I've done is the air intake, there's a nasty pin mark right at the top, so I've just put a little bit of Mr. Surfacer on there, or my homemade stuff, and then same for the bottom as well. I haven't worried about all the others, you're not going to see them, but certainly that top one, the chances are you're going to see it quite a lot. So it's on there, it's drying, it's going to take probably a couple of hours to go off, so that's why I've done it now, to leave it off to one side to get that dry. So right, we'll get those cockpit seats and cushions put on, and then we can worry about putting the harnesses on, which I'll show you how to do on the ejection seat in a minute, and then we can move on with the rest of the kit. Okay, so what we've actually got, the cockpit is together now, just like that, looking pretty nice. So what we've already done, we put the side walls on, they're glued into place and holding now. I've got the PVA glue just drying on the top of the ejection seat, but that will fit in here, something like that. And by the time we get the harnesses on and the instrument panel, it will liven that right up. Now, meantime, what we've got going on here, I've put together the actual the intake trunking for the big mouth on this thing. Now obviously we have that pin mark underneath there, so that's sanded and done, and what I've used is a little bit of Mr. Surfacer 1000 in there just to sort of tidy that up and smooth it down. And then what I'm going to do shortly, I'm going to pour just a little bit just down each seam line, down each side, and let it sink back. Have a look, see how it is, and give it a couple of coats as is necessary. This stuff dries pretty quick, within about sort of 20 minutes each coat I do, so I think within 3 or 4 coats we can do that quite nicely. Usually I'll go down and stick some cellulose thinners and thinner in there, but it's actually quite a nice little seam. If you take your time pairing it up and get it in there, it's only a nice little, tiniest little seam running down there. So obviously I'm hoping to get away with it with just a little bit of that. So that one's done just like that. Moving on really to steps 5, where we actually have the actual fuselage halves. Which might bring you up here, you can see a bit more, there we go. So we've got the fuselage halves just like this. Everything's going to go in as a subsystem, if you like. So we've got here, which was number 3 in the makeup, I believe. When did we do this? Yeah, no, it's part of number 5 step. I haven't put the hoses in yet because we're going to spray those as a separate, but that's going to fit in just like that, which will give us a nice box on the other side there, which shows that bit off quite nicely. So that one will go in. The undercarriage, which is step 4, which is the doors and those things, which are all going to be fitting in here. There again, it's pretty straightforward. You've got your 2 ends which go on and a centre. So if we just do this one, make sure you get them the right way round, which is pretty straightforward. Extra thin, just in there, just like that, and then we can in together, just hold it for a second, let it start to bite, like so. We can go to the other end. just like that, and then in and hold, let it bite like so, and then obviously you've got this other one then which is going to pop in the middle, which obviously because we're doing this and it's wet, we'll just take our time with. That one goes in just like so. Generous amount of glue, let this go in and dry. Just like so, getting a bit low in the old pot. There we go. So once that's in, what will happen is it's quite a nice fit. You actually have it in just like that underneath, and it's a nice amount of detail in there, and by the time we've got it painted up and we've got a wash over it and then we do some dry brushing and perhaps pick out individual hoses, it will look like a very, very busy undercarriage wheel well. So we'll get those bits done like that. The other thing we can do is the gun assembly, which when you look at the instructions here, it shows all the different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put the bait in, spray it as a separate, and put all the bits in afterwards. So we'll slide the guns in afterwards because we can paint those all as a separate, which will just make it a lot easier than going around having to paint it up. So what we'll do, we're going to get all these sections fitted in, which are very straightforward, as I say, because they're just literally going to be push-in fits like this, and then we can go in, glue them all in, and then we can think about bringing the halves together.